It's the brutal 1991 unsolved murder case of the I Can't Believe It's yogurt shop in Austin, Texas. A mystery that has left the community devastated and law enforcement searching for answers 30 years later. With few leads and an abundance of questions, the tragedy which permanently changed the lives of four innocent victims continues to haunt a city who desperately seeks closure. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me in another episode of What Happened. On a Friday evening, December 6, 1991, the lives of four teenage employees of the I Can't Believe It's yogurt shop were changed forever when four armed intruders entered the restaurant on a quiet night in Austin, Texas. The four victims, 13-year-old Amy Ayers, 17-year-old Eliza Thomas and Jennifer Harbison, and Jennifer's 15-year-old sister Sarah, all met with a brutal and tragic ending when their bodies were discovered around midnight inside of the shop. Located in the Hillside Strip Mall, Jennifer and Eliza were employees at the shop, while Sarah and her friend Amy were merely there to get a ride with Jennifer after the restaurant closed at 11 p.m. Earlier that day, Sarah and Amy had been hanging out at the North Cross Mall located a few blocks from the yogurt shop. Around 10 p.m., they left the mall and made their way a few blocks to the Hillside Strip Mall located in the 2900 block of West Anderson Lane. The girls planned on going to a slumber party that evening, so Sarah and Amy figured they could help Jennifer and Eliza close up the shop in order to catch a ride to the party. While on routine patrol, rookie police officer Troy Gay saw smoke billowing from inside the restaurant, and after calling for assistance, dozens of firefighters and police responded, including Detective John Jones, an investigator with the Austin Police Department's Small Homicide Unit. He had been riding with a local news crew that evening, working on a feature about homicides in Texas. The cameras were rolling as they pulled into the parking lot of the yogurt shop, and the footage captured the eerie scene as officers and firefighters paraded in and out of the shop after the bodies were discovered. The victims were forced to enter a storage room in the rear of the shop, where they were ordered to disrobe. Sarah, Eliza, and Jennifer were all gagged and bound with their own underwear, and their bodies were stacked on top of each other. All three had been severely charred and shot in the back of the head. Amy's body was found in a separate part of the shop. She was not charred, but she had received second and third degree burns on 25% of her body. A sock-like cloth was tied around her neck, and she had been shot the same as the others. A .22 and a .380 pistol were used to commit the crime, and according to reports, the perpetrators exited through a back door, which was found unlocked. Materials within the restaurant, along with lighter fluid, were used as an accelerant to set the bodies afire. Due to the high power hoses and the amount of water used to put out the fire, particularly in the rear where the bodies were found, parts of the crime scene were compromised, making it difficult to collect what evidence remained. Detective Jones immediately reached out to the FBI and the Texas Department of Public Safety, which at the time handled most of the crime scene investigations for the local police department. During the investigation, he interviewed all the customers who had been to the shop that day, as well as employees and friends. Thousands of tips were phoned in by concerned citizens, and 8 days later, 15-year-old Maurice Pierce was picked up at North Cross Mall, just blocks from the crime scene, carrying a .22 caliber handgun. After questioning Pierce, detectives decided that he was merely trying to get himself out of the gun charge and eliminated him and three petty criminal friends whom he had implicated, none of whom were 17 at the time. The case would soon go cold. Several years later, in 1999, as new detectives were assigned to investigate the case, it was determined that the original four 1991 teen suspects were more than likely the perpetrators. By that time, they were in their 20s, and as interrogations were conducted by various detectives, confessions were obtained from some of the suspects. They believed, however, that all four, Robert Springsteen, Michael Scott, Maurice Pierce, and Forrest Wilborn, had participated in the murders. Two of the suspects, Robert Springsteen and Michael Scott, confessed to the yoga shop murders and implicated Pierce and Wilborn in the process. All four were subsequently arrested. Unfortunately, no record of the 1991 original interrogations were found, making it impossible to know whether the detectives had supplied information to the suspects in the initial interrogations. Springsteen and Scott would later recant their confessions, stating that they were coerced into making them, and charges were dropped against Pierce and Melbourne due to lack of evidence. Although they recanted their confessions, both men will still go to trial. Springsteen was convicted on May 20th, 2001, and sentenced to death, while Scott was sentenced to life in prison on September 22nd, 2002. Years later, in 2006, Springsteen's conviction was overturned when the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals ruled that Scott's confession had been improperly used as evidence against him in violation of his Sixth Amendment right to cross-examine witnesses. In their efforts to retry the men, prosecutors ordered DNA tests on both. They believed that one of the victims had been assaulted and hoped the DNA test would be a match to one of the men from what was collected at the time of the murder. As a result of the testing, a partial male DNA profile was obtained from one of the victims. But to the surprise of prosecutors, the DNA sample did not match any of the four men who had been arrested. On October 28, 2009, all charges were dropped against Springsteen and Scott. On December 23, 2010, while conducting a routine traffic stop, officers Frank Wilson and partner Bradley Smith came face to face with original suspect Maurice Pierce. After a short foot pursuit, Pierce struggled with Officer Wilson and then pulled out a knife and stabbed him in the neck. Wilson survived his injuries and was able to retrieve his gun, shooting and killing Pierce. After nearly 35 years, two overturned convictions, and a case which still remains in Austin's cold case files, the murder of four young, vibrant teens on a quiet night at the I Can't Believe It yoga shop remains unsolved. The victims, Amy Ayers, Eliza Thomas, and Jennifer and Sarah Harbison, will always be remembered as their families and the community continue to bring their memories to the forefront in hopes that one day the case will finally be solved. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of What Happened. Like, comment, and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you can always be the first to know what happened. Until next time.